Welcome everyone to this episode of the Vitality Secret podcast. I'm delighted to be here again, the second time on this podcast, with Tim Sanders, who is the founder of the Omnia radiation balancer. We actually met at a 5G event in 2019 in Chelsea, and I was so taken by his knowledge in the field of EMFs and the electrical body and what it takes for our cells to be healthy and how these electromagnetic fields affect our cell health that we just got talking, and we've remained friends ever since. So welcome, Tim, back to the podcast. So good to see you again.
Thank you so much. Great to be here.
Yeah. So a lot's changed since you and I spoke last, and we last did a Facebook live or interview. And I have been using the Omnia balancer for quite some time on various devices that I have. It's right there on my laptop, but I can't show you because it's on the laptop I'm filming from, my phone and other devices. And I'd love to come on to that in a moment. But before that, I would like to ask you how you found or stumbled upon this technology, because I think that's a very interesting origin story.
Yeah, sure. In short, I went to a festival, kind of like a consciousness festival, that was hosted by a guy called Michael Tellinger in South Africa. And I didn't have a job at the time. I'd just come back from living in Singapore, and I was kind of like at a loose end. And then someone mentioned this festival. Funnily enough, she said, "I'm going," and then I booked my ticket, and then she decided not to go. So I just thought, I'm going to go on my own and just, see what happens, roll the dice. And while I was there, I just found out all sorts. Was introduced to so many different things. I just knew there would be something out there for me to grab hold of. But one guy was doing a talk about free energy, a guy called Ilya Lakisevich, who's a sort of very kind of hardcore physicist. And he was doing a talk about free energy, and halfway through, he said, "Oh, I've also got the solution to all the radiation problems in the world." And I was like, "Wait a minute, that's quite a big call, right? That's a big shout." So
Big
after
claim.
big claim. And so after that, I went up to him. It was a very informal festival, as you can imagine. And I went up to him and I said, "What have you got?" And he showed me these stickers. And I was just like, those are stickers. I couldn't quite get my head around how they would work. However, about a year before, a friend of mine, funnily enough, the same person who didn't come to the festival, who's also like an alternative practitioner, she does a lot of muscle testing. So she came around to my flat in Singapore, which is where we were living at the time. And she muscle tested me for everything because I was having some trouble with my health. And she was like, "Okay, we've got to get everything toxic out of your life, right? Everything your body doesn't like." So she muscle tested me for my like toothpaste and deodorant and aftershave. And obviously she threw out all this stuff, and I smelled pretty bad for a couple of days. But then she got to my phone, right? And I was just like, not the phone. But she muscle tested me on my phone, and sure enough, I went weak. And I was like, right, well, what do we do about that? Because I'm not too keen on getting rid of my phone, as most people aren't. So from that, I knew how to muscle test. It's not too difficult, right? I know professionally it's different to doing it in an amateur way. And I thought, right, okay, if you've got these stickers, I'm going to go and muscle test everyone at the festival, if you don't mind. And he was like, "Be my guest." So I went off and I tested these people, and sure enough, their bodies all went strong. And I thought, well, this is really important for anyone that's holding a phone. They presumably want to have a strong body when they're using their phone. So I took the product back to London, tested it on, did some live blood analysis, did more applied kinesiology with qualified kinesiologists. Did water structure tests and HRV, heart rate variability, and also quite a lot of bioresonance and even ART as well, and even biogeometry. We've had it tested on biogeometry. So it comes through all of those with flying colors. So I thought, well, this is very important to share with the world. And I built a company around his stickers.
Incredible. I'm a huge fan of kinesiology. Some of the best practitioners I know in the world use applied kinesiology to get to the cause of illness. And as that practitioner said to you, let's figure out which toxicity or which toxins are causing your body to be in dis-ease. I think if we can understand that very fundamental, illness is created with toxins and or chronic stress, typically, which is really a result of trauma, unresolved trauma. But back to the toxins, if we can go through a checklist and figure out precisely which toxins are triggering inflammation in the body, that's what causes the immune system to become compromised. And, you know, we now know with cell phone radiation and with EMFs, with the thousands of studies that came out prior to 2019 when 5G was launched, we know that these EMFs affect us at the cell level. And that isn't a good thing. So,
and we can even describe what happens at the cell level when we are exposed to electromagnetic fields, which is something that most people are missing. Most people don't quite understand it. So, you know, we can get into that if you want. But actually, it's the same as any toxin. When any toxin hits the cell, the same thing happens. It's just most people don't even understand the cell. I know that's going to sound like another big call, but most people don't even understand the human cell. They'll give you a picture of something, but most of the time I've seen anyone put a biological picture of a cell up. They use a diagram, right? Have you noticed that? They don't use any proper or a CGI of a blood cell or something like that. But I mean, I actually came a bit well prepared, but I wanted to show you that. Straight off the bat.
I remember the donuts. Yeah.
The donuts, you remember those? So ultimately, those are blood cells taken from inside the body. So you'll notice that they're effectively torus fields of something white, which we know to be electric current or light. So there you go. Your cells are made of light, and they look like torus fields. And what happens is, on the inside of this empty space here, there's a black hole. And on the inside of the black hole, there's a magnetic still point. And around the magnetic still point spins the light field. So we are electromagnetic. We know from the Heart Math Institute that we have an electrical field emanating from our heart going to about 3 feet, and then a weaker one going out to about 12 feet. But you can see it there. It's like the micro and the macro. The macro is the big energy field outside our bodies, but the micro is also consistent with the way that energy moves and self-organizes. So you've got that magnetic still point at the center of the spinning ring of electric current. And what happens with electromagnetic frequencies that we're exposed to is that magnetic point inside our cells listens to the EMF field. And so I'll just draw it out for you. The way it's the easiest way that I know to explain it is effectively all the energy in your body wants to move like this, you know, with a nice balance between the magnetic and the electric. Every time you experience a toxin, that magnetic still point starts to get imbalanced with the electric, right? And then you have dis-ease. You start have the platform for dis-ease. And then basically, if you imagine your cells are spinning like this, and then along comes an EMF field and it spins kind of like this with what we call imbalance and uncenteredness. It means the relationship between dissonance. Yeah. So it causes dissonance because dissonance is the opposite of resonance, right? And I'll just draw both of those out. So if the electromagnetic field from wireless radiation is spinning and vibrating like this, where the magnetic point at the inside of the electric field is basically distorted, right? Then the magnetic point inside our cells picks up and mimics the vibration of that field. So you then basically pick up this imbalance and uncenteredness in your cells. And if you want to see that in action, you can look at our live blood analysis on our website to see that in my body, in my blood. So the challenge for us, at least, is to take that field that's going like this and make it go like that. And then basically your body goes, I like that new field, right? Because before it was dissonance was caused because that, cell was listening to that imbalanced energy field and it was starting to vibrate in sympathy with it, causing dissonance. But when we change the spin and the vibration so that it's flowing like that around a magnetic 0 point, then we get resonance between the body's energy field and the EMF field. And that's what we do through our technology. And that's kind of unique in the way that we explain it and also solve the problem, compared to a lot of others. EMF protection products out there. Yeah.
You know, I've got a fly just flying on my head. What I just want to bring
That's the
in
trouble with living in these exotic places.
I know.
No sympathy.
Yeah, about a year or two ago, that's a big difference. I think 2 years ago, I interviewed the business partner of Nassim Haramein on my podcast.
Right.
And I know you know who Nassim Haramein is,
Yep.
possibly superseded Einstein at this point. And talking about dissonance, he said to me, do you know what the ultimate cause of illness is? And here's me being a bit cocky going, yeah, it's low voltage to an organ. It's the cells. Right. And the cells losing the ability, or the body losing the ability to create new cells that work because of low voltage. And he actually said, no, I think he means yes and. Yes, and dissonance from the field is the ultimate cause of illness. That's what he said. I mean, yes, he did say no to me, and I'll take that because it's his Nassim Haramein's business partner.
Yeah, sure.
So dissonance from the field, and what you're discussing right here is dissonance. And he said, do you know what the ultimate, the biggest threat that we have right now is? This is the business partner of Nassim Haramein. He said, do you know what the biggest threat that we have right now is to our health? Guess, Tim.
Diet?
EMFs.
EMFs. Oh, he said EMFs. Right. Sorry.
He said EMFs.
I missed my cue.
Yeah.
Well,
I know. That happens.
Yeah,
and it makes
they're
sense.
Around us all. Basically, we've got choice. We've got choices about what we eat, right? But we don't have any choice about what we're surrounded with anymore.
Yeah.
It's just pumped at us, and body's got to deal with it, right? This is what I'm trying to do to make people understand that the body is electric, and we are conditioned to respond to EMFs. We don't have a choice. It's not like I can have a salad today and maybe I'll have some cake tomorrow or whatever, and then I'll regulate it out. With EMFs, they're coming at us all the time, and we are electrically conditioned to respond. Now, some people will respond and be more resilient to others. But as you probably know as well as I do, some people are incredibly sensitive. Like I talk to people who have to use chopsticks on their keyboard, right? Because they can't touch it, because they're that sensitive. And I've since found out that is actually largely due to a mineral depletion in their body. Deficiency, sorry. And as you probably know, there's a body of work by a guy called Dr. Martin Paul, who talks about how the outer membrane of the cell gets excited by electromagnetic fields made by man. Very important to distinguish EMF made by man compared to the sun, which is the giver of all life, which is a positive, balanced energy field, right? This is the difference. It's nothing to do with ionizing versus non-ionizing. It's all to do whether the spin and the vibration is balanced and the relationship between the magnetic and the electric is in balance. If it's not, then it's something that will cause dissonance in the body. And I can talk a little bit more about what that is exactly if you want. But ultimately, yes, we're surrounded by all of these fields, and our bodies are going to respond, some worse than others. And the people who are worse than others already know about it, because it's already at a level that they can't tolerate. So they're all looking for solutions, but they're the canaries in the coal mine. But the last thing I was going to say is that they are more likely to have mineral deficiencies anyway, that's then aggravated by that calcium channel getting opened up, and then that lets too much calcium into the cell, and then you've got an imbalance of the minerals in the cell. And if you look at Walter Russell's periodic table and his science, he shows that inside the cell there has to be a certain proportion of the minerals. It's not just that they all have to be there, they all have to be there in proportion. And if the calcium gets too much, then it sets off all these free radicals in the cell, and then you got the precursor to dis-ease, like you were saying.
Yeah, this is huge, and I know people personally who can't be around Wi-Fi. If
Right.
they go into a coffee shop, they get a headache. They get a, not like a throbbing one, but they absolutely know that their cells are being affected by the EMFs. Electrohypersensitivity is a real thing, despite what the mainstream likes to say about it. And I think the moment we think about the body as an electrical system, it's everything just gets clearer. Everything just gets so much easier to understand. We're wired up like a house with different organs on different circuits. Every one of our cells is electrically charged. Yeah, and there they are. They're the cells. Have you? You must have seen. You must have seen the videos of people's blood being looked at when they've been exposed to a smart meter. I've got a 1 minute video that I'm going to overlay the recording of this. We can see what happens with the blood when we are in close proximity to a smart meter. And we can imagine the same with these cell phones as well, with our mobile phones as well. During COVID, a lot of us in the biohacking space are getting radiation protection. We're saying, right, we've just had 5G launched without a single biological test of safety, which at that time, I was thinking it was the most dangerous thing I'd ever seen in the history of mankind. And you might have been on the same path. And then since then, we've had even more dangerous things launched. So, yeah. So a lot of people have experienced immunocompromising due to these EMFs. We can't say it's the virus, of course, but we can say that it's compromised the immune system. What we can say, there's two things. And what has affected our immune systems more than just about anything? Potentially an increase in electromagnetic fields in 2019. And there's, of course, those maps with a pretty good correlation. Not perfect, but a pretty good correlation. And then there's Arthur Firstenberg's book, The Invisible Rainbow. And he discussed that preceding every pandemic going back, well, every pandemic over the last 100 years or so was an increase in electromagnetic radiation. So there's a lot that we can learn from history, and we can take it upon ourselves, protect ourselves while we adjust and do things like ground and get plenty of sunlight. But I love your explanation then of the cell and dissonance and how we can create resonance again and harmonize. You've not used that word yet, but that's what I kept on wanting to say as you're discussing what you're saying. Your product effectively harmonizes the radiation, doesn't it? Is that correct in saying?
Correct. Yeah. I mean, the basically, if I'm drawing it out again, to make a field go from an imbalanced field to a balanced field like that is the harmonization of the field, effectively. That's what we talk about. And the way that we do that is basically moving that 0 point, which is in the center of the torus field of light, back into its absolute geometric center. So once it's in the absolute geometric center, we have, believe it or not, the vibration electrically of love. All of these blood cells here are all in the blueprint of, or the template of love. And your blood cells can move out of that template. I was actually, I had something prepared here, which echoes what you were saying there, which is basically these blood cells here are exactly the same as what we've just seen, but black is white and white is black. So the white hole in the middle is actually the black hole and vice versa. So these are healthy blood cells, bobbing around on a Petri dish or whatever. And this is my blood cells after watching 20 minutes of video on a cell phone. And then we basically put our sticker on the phone and then I watched another 20 minutes and it went back to normal. But these are just snapshots. There's a whole 3 minutes of video of this one, 3 minutes of video of this one. And we go around the sample on this one and the whole thing is rouleaued and stuck together. Because, the magnetic point in my blood cells was listening to the imbalance, and it started to basically lose all of its natural torus shape, and then they all formed chains and started sticking together. So look, I think we're the only people talking about this specific element. You mentioned some of the real kind of way showers in this space, like Furstenberg, and I mentioned Dr. Paul and so on. But I think we're the only people that's answering this one question, which is, why is the sun different to man-made electromagnetic fields? And what I've told you is that it's not about the heat. See, the whole phone industry is getting away with doing a SAR test on heat. And if you didn't know how they do the SAR test, maybe your audience doesn't know, so I'll just run through it very quickly because it will surprise you. The way the SAR test is, by the way, a specific absorption rate of heat, and I think it stands at 2 watts per kilogram, which is literally just a giant finger in the air. It's not based on any biological tests. It's just someone made it up in 1996, and they haven't changed it since. Remember what phones we had in 1996, and we only had 1G, maybe 2G at that point. Now we've got 5G, and they haven't changed the standards since then. But what they have done is dreamt up more and more sophisticated tests that they can do to supposedly ensure our safety. And what they do is they get a plastic model of a human being with plastic skin, and they fill it up with fake blood. And then what they do is they get a phone, and they put a phone next to the plastic skin, and then they put a sensor inside the fake blood, and they measure any heat that went from the phone through the fake skin into the fake blood, right? That's the way that they measure SAR. And there's one thing missing from that test, I think you'll agree: a human being.
Right. A real
a real human being. And as I've said before, if everything in the body is electric, you can't do a test on a plastic body with fake blood and fake skin if you're not replicating the actual electrical functions inside our bodies, right? It's not a test that really stands up to any scrutiny. It's not really fit for purpose. So they do these tests on a plastic dummy, and they try and tell us it's all about heat. But we represent, or I represent, new knowledge that I think has to be shared amongst all the people, Furstenberg and all, which is that it's all about the quality of the vibration. And if we take it one step further, I mentioned the fact that there's that magnetic point and then the torus field of light. What happens with the torus field of light in every atom and cell is that the torus field of light borrows the energy from the still magnetic point, which is actually the 0 point in physics. So that is inside every single one of our cells, is a 0 point, a magnetic point. And the electric ring borrows the energy to spin itself into matter, into a cell, and then it discharges itself into the ether. So it basically compresses into matter, into the physical, and then it discharges into the ether. And that's happening in every atom, whether it's a blade of grass, a grain of sand, whether it's this glass here, whether it's the water in my glass here. Every atom is conforming to that pattern, according to the science of Ilya Lakisevich, and he's done all of these tests to prove that. And you'll find lots of evidence of that on our YouTube channels and Instagram and so on. So that's important, because if that compression, oh, by the way, the alternation between the compression phase and expansion, the speed at which an electrical field flicks on and off, is frequency, because frequency is just a number, right? It's describing a phenomena. And the phenomena is the making and the discharging, the charging up of the light ring and the discharging of the light ring. So in this, what I would call the electric holographic universe, everything is electric current in motion, or light in motion. And light is the same thing as electric current. So effectively, when the compression is equal to the expansion phase, then that 0 point sits in the absolute geometric center of the wave field. But if the compression phase is unequal to the expansion phase, then we get imbalance in the structure of the wave field. And that imbalance is effectively what hits our bodies, and our bodies then become imbalanced. And like you said before, some people are feeling that instantly now, but lots of people are basically going to feel the effects over time. It's going to be a bit like smoking cigarettes, right? It's like you don't get cancer after 2 packs, but after 15 years, your lungs are probably going to be black from all of the smoke and so on. So it's an attritional thing. If you keep wearing down the positive charge in your body, then effectively your body will eventually just go, I'm done with this. Here's some here's some cancer. Here's
Yeah.
here's a problem. Here's a problem that you now got to deal with because you've just put me under stress for like 15 years.
Yeah. It's interesting you brought up cancer, because just as you were talking about sensitivity to EMFs, I thought about my friend Mark, who's recently reversed cancer in the space of 2 months. And
Wow.
he did all of the things, detoxified against, every form of potential toxin, starting with diet, of course, and EMFs, and removing any potential toxin from his life, including people. And yeah, he really went across down like a checklist and decided where to detoxify his body. And he noticed, as his body was detoxifying with various powerful supplements, I mean, all these toxins were coming out of his skin, and his body was becoming more and more sensitive. And he joined us for breath work every morning, and we actually witnessed what was happening in his body. Like, we saw these toxins coming out of his face. It was quite a thing. And he said that, I can't remember at which point, maybe 6 weeks in, he was so sensitive to EMFs that he bought a beanie to protect his head, like a jacket. And he would notice when he was driving towards a cell phone tower, he could feel the radiation, because his body was so clean after all the detoxification that he became more sensitive to the EMFs. So it's almost like it had a negative effect by detoxifying, because his cells became more sensitive, whereas most of us have built up this tolerance over time, and we don't notice how sensitive we are to EMF because we've built up the tolerance. So it's almost like it's like, what's the word I'm looking for? It's a benefit being not having toxins in you, because the cancer disappears, but then your cells are your body is sensitive.
It's that double-edged sword, isn't it?
And it's like when people take out gluten and then they reintroduce it, they're in horrendous problems, but your body builds up this tolerance to gluten over your lifetime, and then you take 30 days off, and then you suddenly notice how affected your body is by gluten. So just a little example.
Your cells have intelligence, right? They basically they learn how to deal with something, and then when you remove it, it's like, oh great, then they go and do something, they change their behavior almost, so that when it comes back, it's a complete foreign substance, and then you can really have that kind of crazy reaction. It
reminds me of a client recently who had vasculitis on his foot, like really bad vasculitis, which is kind of swelling and pussing and all kinds of things. It's an autoimmune. And I said, one of the things I'd like to take out of your diet is gluten, because let's just see, look, most people are intolerant. And then he said, no, I'm fine with gluten. And he took it out for 30 days, and then he reintroduced it by accident, and he had a flare up, and he just couldn't believe how much his body reacted to that one thing after removing it for 30 days. Like, so many people can get better without gluten in their lives. It's extraordinary. So, or dairy or sugar, 3 main things. So EMFs, back to EMFs. Sorry for these flies buzzing around my face. They're fascinating. It's nature.
I was wondering whether it's on my screen or no.
Like,
I was about to try and
I should maybe done it inside. It's just I like being outside. I've been grounded, which is good for EMFs, while I'm on the phone, on the laptop, absorbing the light. Do you ever do sun gazing at sunset or sunrise?
I try and go out in the sun as much as I can, but I don't. But I mean, even then, you've got to be careful because of what they're putting up there, right? But sun gazing, not yet. But I've been told that it's really good if you stand in water, like if you stand in the sea, or if you stand in a lake or something like that. Natural water, especially if you connect with the seabed. That's what I was told was like, it really enhances the experience. But no, I haven't.
As you're gazing into the sun, you mean?
Yeah, as you're gazing into the sun, you're in the water, you're grounded into the earth. You've got that connection with the water and the earth and the sun. It's just like, wow.
On the subject of grounding, I think it's one of the easiest things that we can do to counteract the effects of EMFs. I recommend grounding sheets and pillows to all of my clients, and some report better sleep the first time they use them. And of course, turning our phones off at night so they're not by our beds and affecting our sleeping patterns. So back to the Omnia. you have determined that when you have an Omnia sticker, which I don't have on this phone because it's a recent replacement, and I need to get some more packs from you.
Yeah.
When you have the Omnia sticker on the phone, are you happy having that phone next to your gentleman vegetables?
Well, the short answer is no, just because I know what can happen. And, even though I've tested it and I'm very happy that with the test results, I'm still incredibly cautious about how I use EMF for sure. I think everyone has to be. The tests on, sperm are the easiest thing to do that would be the easiest thing for the telco industry to do as a test on the microbiome, the biological system of even if it is just men, because you can count it, you can measure its sense of direction and its ability to move, and all of those and there's one more that I've forgotten, but basically there's 4 measurements that you can make on our little swimmers, and most of the time it's bad news. I mean, whenever they test rats, it's bad news. On us, it's bad news as well. And
I've seen the tests. It's very clear.
All of those,
couldn't be clearer.
And that's the human race we're talking about. That's the future of the human race. Hello, and it's like when you compare the tests that have been done, the biological tests that have been done on cells, living cells in the human body, and you compare that to the industry safety testing that we're doing, it's like someone's just got to step forward and say, we've just tested 50 people out of the human race, and these are the results we got. You now have to do the same. Get rid of that, plastic dummy and the fake blood and the sensor. Get rid of that and do something that shows us that they're all safe. That would send the world into an absolute panic, and you'd be like the guy who shot Bambi, because everyone loves their phones, right? But ultimately, what do you like? Do you prefer to stay healthy or not? But to answer your question, I mean, the longer term view is that we could eventually replace electric current, which is the main offender here, by the way. The electric current is the major offender here. If we develop new ways of free energy and developing free energy, I'm pretty sure that we will get to a point where we can pass data to a phone without it harming us. I hold space for that to be true. I'm not sure how we get there yet, but I've just got this inkling that it's going to happen, because there's a awakening going on many different levels. But I think as part of that, we're going to be remembering how to use energy, perhaps as our ancestors used to know how to, with all those amazing churches that they built in Dietary and so on. But anyway, that's another story. But yes, I do still always keep my phone away from my body. That's just something I do. I also sometimes wear EMF protective clothing just because why not? It's just another level of bouncing it off. And ultimately, I take it seriously, because I had a lot of trouble with stress in my life a few years ago. And when I found about EMF causing stress in the body through a just simple muscle test, I was like, well, I personally have to take ownership of that and do something about it. It's funny because you probably meet a lot of people like this as well, who you give information to and then they just don't do anything about it. They go into like, well, that'll sort itself out somehow, and they do nothing about it, and they take no ownership. And I think that's a bit of an endemic at the moment, or a pandemic of the someone else will sort it. A jab will sort it out. A pill will sort it out. Something else will sort it out. But me and you are probably of the same mindset, which is that if there's a problem, go and find out how you can get over it, how you can adjust things so that you give yourself, your body, the best chance it can be in a healthy state.
I totally agree. I actually wrote in my book, which is that one, I see the secret source of healing as 100% responsibility for our health and our lives.
Right.
And it's like radical responsibility, I called it, thanks to the book Radical Remission by Dr. Kelly Turner, who interviewed all these people who radically reversed advanced stages of cancer without a single medical intervention, and what it took to detoxify the body across every single pathway you can think of, and everything about healing. And if we can take it upon ourselves to do the research and not just rely on others, because there's so much disinformation in the mainstream media, disinformation in the industries that we're talking about. If there's a dollar sign, we can virtually guarantee that there's not a very nice consciousness behind that. Let's just call it that way. And I think one of the
what they
best
tend
ways...
to do is, as soon as you come through with the truth, they try and take you down for disinformation, right?
Oh yeah.
So it's
they
like,
take,
oh no,
they'll take
only we can do the disinformation and the misinformation and so on. So
I mean, I think in the last 3 years, a lot of people have had a huge awakening. Some people a rude awakening, with what's been taking place, suppression of data. My goodness, parliamentary hearings in Europe and the English courts have really shone a light on the corruption. And I think it's really woken people up to what is really at the root of so much illness and dis-ease in the world and the rest. And if we know that people around the world are healing every kind of illness without a single medical intervention, we know about the science of epigenetics, which says it's the environment in the body that signals the genes. It's not the genes that trigger the illness. So if we create an environment in the body conducive to healing, the body will heal anything. And we can also be resilient. During COVID, for example, we know that the statistics of survival, I believe on the CDC, was 99.98% survival rate, which shows how phenomenal the immune system is. I mean, it's not a surprise. We went from a sperm and an egg to this. We're immaculately designed. So the vast majority of people were fine. And if they took a while to get over COVID, it's because they're probably chronically inflamed and have other stressors on their body. Could be electromagnetic radiation, for example. But the vast majority of people who lost their lives during that time were chronically inflamed or had, in other words, comorbidities, pre-existing conditions. Chronically inflamed, body's already toxic. So if we can take the toxins out and we can put the cells, fuels in, oxygen, water, nutrients, detoxify daily, get sunlight, get grounded, and we get back to nature, we can heal. And I think if I were to summarize everything I've done with my clients for 8 years, it's about getting back to nature. It's about identifying where we have moved away from nature and coming back into alignment with the nature codes. And these EMFs are taking us away from nature. They are creating dissonance, back to the words of Mark Hines, the business partner of Nassim Haramein. So we need to create harmony in our bodies and resonance. And I see the Omnia, your product, as one of those ways to bring that harmony back to people's bodies. Even if you don't want to wear it, put the phone next to your testicles, it certainly feels better having it there than not having the protection there. I do have EMF protective underwear as well, but I don't want to get rid of my phone. It's amazing. And like yourself, we're all using our devices now. So how can we best protect? And these Omnia stickers they are inexpensive. They're 50 odd pounds for 3.
Well, right? 54 pounds, I think, for a 3-pack. So that would be about 18 pounds each. And they last forever. So I mean, I've got to confess that the one that you had, which was bought about 2 years ago, some of those have deteriorated a little bit. But now we're creating stickers that will never fade, will never get ruined. They're kind of flame proof almost. So they'll last forever if you buy them now. And for £18 to have your blood cells in good shape and have your body nice and strong, which we show from our kinesiology tests. And we also do water structure tests, which show that the water molecule gets destroyed by electromagnetic fields. And then when you put our patch on, then nice crystals emerge. When we basically get some water, we irradiate the water, we fill the water right up to the top. We basically put a phone on the top and play a video, so that all of the electromagnetic fields are getting absorbed by the vibration of the water. Then we send that off and get it photographed. And if you have the sticker on the phone, then these nice crystals emerge, hexagonal structure of water, like a snowflake.
Brilliant.
So
I've seen that test. Love
goes to show that the water is listening to the electromagnetic field. One of them it didn't like, the one that wasn't protected. The other one it actually quite liked. So, all these things build a case for the fact that we have what we regard as the truth about what the problem is. And we also have a very interesting way using a new type of energy that was discovered by Ilya Lakisevich, which is called Deca energy, which can be programmed to actually take that field that goes like this and then basically bring it back to that. And it's programmed via our own conscious intent, which is something that Nikola Tesla, for example, was very hot on. But in Tesla's time, this unit of energy called Deca energy, it didn't exist, because Dr. Lakisevich tells us that it's only been in our atmosphere since 2007. And that's when he found it, and since then he's been using it and working with it. And I really hope he comes up with a solution to all the world's energy problems, because ultimately what his vision is that you have a sticker that you put on your laptop or on your phone, and it charges it up, right? Brilliant. And then we get rid of the electricity grid altogether. And can you imagine if I went up to Elon Musk and said, here's a sticker for every car, he'd be like cartwheeling down the street. So that's a possible future, put it that way. That's a possible future. I hold space for that to be true. It's not been made true yet, but he keeps telling me he's closer and closer to.
Nassim Haramein is apparently very close to that, I understand. Free energy.
I think we're all going to get there at once.
Yeah.
I think it's like the finishing line is there, and they're all going to, something's going to happen, some flash is going to happen, and they're all going to cross the line together with their own similar things that do the same thing, but in a slightly different way. But that's great. I hope that happens.
Yeah, I do. It reminds me about the Fibonacci sequence of the DNA, and how the DNA, because of that golden mean ratio that is apparent in the DNA, it's one of our it's one of our batteries. It's where we actually store energy, and it implodes scalar energy. So the human body is actually charged by scalar energy. We know it scientifically. So we don't want to be messing with our DNA. And these things affect the DNA, as do other things. So I love what you've created.
If you go back to the atom model that I was talking about, that process within the atom and cell is that every atom and cell charges itself to compress itself into matter and then discharges itself. So it's going on through that sort of, alternation, that interchange between those two phases. And as long as it's in balance, then you have this positive, good, harmonious energy in your body. But there are all sorts of things that could throw it out of electrical balance, which we've covered, extensively. But obviously, number one on this chat, at least, is the EMF. Life is all about electrical balance. And we can get, and I hope I've explained the physics of what electrical balance means, and as well as harmonizing, as well as resonance, as well as dissonance, and all those good things. So that's all stuff that I learned through reading the papers of Dr. Lakisevich, and it resonates with me. Excuse the pun, but it does. As soon as I read it, I was just like, well, I've never really been that into science, but this just it seems to be the truth, And then I look for other examples of it. I'm going to show you one other thing, which I don't know if I've shown you ever before, but it brings home, kind of what we're talking about, which is this. So I'll explain what this is, but first of all, before I explain it, you can see the light rings, right? You can see the torus fields of light going from one side to another, right? And what this is, it's obviously a picture taken in the dark, but what you can't see is that this is a glass tube, right? A cylindrical glass tube. And on one side, you've got cathode, and then on the other side, you've got an anode. So effectively, electric current is being passed from one plus electrode to another minus electrode, right? That's what's happening here, right? In our physics books, it says that these things should be pellets, literally like a scattergun down the tube. But we don't see little balls. We don't see little pellets shooting down a tube. We see torus fields of light going down a centering point. We literally see the torus fields of light going down the magnetic still point, which is formed at the center of the glass ring. But the other thing is, this is electric current passing down the tube. When you've turned the lights out, and you've put gas in the tube, what does it look like? It looks like light, because it is light, because electrical current is the same thing as light. And these are the breakthroughs that I hope to get across to people. And for me, it's given me quite a few aha moments, understanding, when people say, oh, we're light beings and we're light workers and we're this, that, and the other. Well, here's the physics behind it. An atom is a torus field of light, and you are made of atoms, and your cells self-organize as torus fields of light within your body, and so on. And then there's one that goes outside your body like this. And there's another one measured by the Heart Math Institute that goes out to 12 feet. And there's one outside the whole planet, right? So it's like as above, so below, micro, macro, harmonic scales, which is something that Walter Russell was really into. His whole periodic table is all about how certain minerals or atoms get to a certain pressure condition, and then they turn into the next atom. So calcium begats, I'm going to get this wrong, by the way, because I can't remember it off the top of my head, but calcium begats potassium begats magnesium, all when that certain atom reaches certain pressure conditions, it then turns into something else and something else. And that is also, going up the kind of the scale, the harmonic scale and so on. So I must confess, the expert on that is Dr. Lakisevich, not necessarily me, but I've picked up tidbits about it that all, are very interesting and exciting.
Yeah, I don't think we need to understand every finite detail to grasp some key concepts. We don't need to know how the car drives to drive it. And what we can do is just look at a very simplistic view of the body. If we know that we're 50 to 100 trillion cells, that's not debatable. If we know that every one of them is electrically charged, that's not up for debate. That's happening. If we know that every one of those cells thrives off light, and if we know that the cells are sensitive to EMFs, that's kind of what we need to know. And how can we harmonize those effects? We know that grounding scientifically reduces inflammation in the body because we're absorbing those negative electrons from the ground. We know that we're absorbing energy from the sun, which is another way of charging up the body, charging up our cellular health and the battery packs of our cells. There's so much that we can just kind of simplify and just take a zoomed out approach. I appreciate your explanation because I've not heard it described that way. I do like to simplify things as much as I can. I just wanted to give one story quickly before we finish. In 2017, the reason I got into the body electric and understanding how we're wired up like a house with different organs and different circuits is I had a cold that I couldn't shake off for more than a month. Okay, it was a very mild thing, but it was annoying. And I was used to never getting sick. And if I did get sick, I'd beat it within about 24 to 48 hours, very, very quickly. And at that time, I was living in Los Angeles. I was super anti-inflammatory, vegetable juicing every day. I was doing high-intensity interval training. I was doing yoga. I was doing all the good things, right, to be strong and have a strong immune system, which is why I would never get sick. Or if I did, I'd get rid of it quickly. And I couldn't get rid of it for more than a month. And I went to go and see a kinesiologist, recommended to me by a friend of mine at the time. Well, he's still a good friend of mine, business partner at the time. And he said to me, or my business partner said to me, this guy turned my life around in 3 months. Go just see what he has to say about it. So I did. And he tested me, and within about 10 minutes, he said to me, you've 3 teeth this side of my mouth where I happen to hold my cell phone were depolarized. And I looked at him like he was some kind of alien from outer space. And I said, what does that mean? And he said, your teeth are like circuit breakers, and electromagnetic fields, most likely from your phone, have depolarized, flipped the polarity to a positive charge instead of a net negative charge. And these teeth are connected to your immune system. And that's when he said, we're wired up like a house, different organs, different circuits, and your teeth are circuit breakers. So people with infected root canals, mercury in the mouth, cavitations, for example, that drops the voltage in that circuit. And what happened, I just added something else then. If the polarity flips, the voltage drops to the circuit in question. And I used to be an electrician. So as he's talking about this, I'm going, oh, okay, with the body electric. Now I'm starting to
You're rewiring your
yeah.
your mouth.
I'm like, hang on. if the light stops working in the house, in the living room, and it starts flickering, I want to figure out, reverse engineer why that's happening. And I'll normally get a tester out, and I'll say, okay, where's, maybe there's a corroded wire, or there's a screw gone through a cable, or a dodgy light switch, or there's a dodgy connection somewhere. Something's dropped the voltage, the power going to the light. Same thing in the human body. If we get any kind of chronic illness, it's a characteristic of all chronic illness is low voltage to an organ. That's a fundamental of the body electric. So with me in 2017, my voltage had dropped to my immune system because of the cell phone radiation. And the treatment that he used on me was lasers, scalar energy lasers. He shined lasers on my teeth, and in 2 sessions, my cold went away. And he said, don't ever hold your phone next to your face again.
Right.
So I didn't.
Wow.
And I've always had a cable ever since. I will never buy those Bluetooth headsets, as I'm sure you don't. Because they're casting radiation right into your brain.
And so remember, all your brain waves are electrical fields. When we talk about how the body is electric, some things are much easier to measure than others in terms of the electrical currents in the body. We know the heart is the big electrical pump, but all of your brain waves are different electrical fields measured in hertz. Alpha is different to beta, different to gamma, and so on. There was even a guy called Bruce Tainio who measured the frequencies of every organ and put them in a chart. But since then, guess what? His research has been buried. I've tried to find it, and I've even phoned up some of his relatives or people who used to work with him, and they just sort of shiftily say, well, that research isn't available anymore, kind of thing. It's like, oh, he was onto something. The electrical constitution of the body is the platform for all healing, I think. And I think you're coming to the same conclusion. And they 100%. Don't want you to know that, because the whole of big pharma disappears in a flash. I totally agree with what you were saying earlier on. Imagine if every family or every household knew how to heal people, right? It could just be that simple, where you have simple healing tools, whether it's massage, whether it's fascia massage, deep breathing, diet, electrical rebalancing. All those things are actually quite simple and quite, easily accessible. But we've just been fooled into thinking that the body is 100% biological. But it isn't. It's first of all electric, and then the biology happens, or the biochemistry happens downstream from that, right?
Absolutely. There's a brilliant interview on Gaia called High Voltage Living with Glenn Streeter. And he said voltage precedes chemistry in the body. And the moment we get our head around that, we can completely reframe what cancer is. We can completely reframe what every single illness is. And we talked about toxins. That practitioner you met right at the beginning, where are the toxins coming from? That should be the number one question everyone asks ourselves if we ever get sick. Where have I fallen out of alignment with nature? And how is that creating toxicity in my body, dropping the voltage to my organs? Imagine we just simplified everything like that. Instead of, give me that drug or chemotherapy derived from mustard gas in the First and Second World Wars, which is known to cause cancer. I mean, the clues are there when we look. And we don't need to use that system anymore. It's outdated unless you need an open heart surgery or painkiller, or you've just had a car accident, for which Western medicine is obviously phenomenal. When it comes to dis-ease, I think it's very questionable, and more often than not toxic and harmful. And I've got my own personal experience with it. 30 years of eczema, steroid creams, harmful prescription moisturizers, antibiotics when I had a flare up. Everyone who works in the holistic health space comes with their own story of healing, and that was mine.
Me too.
And that's how you got into this world.
Totally ruined my whole gut.
So there's the other side of all this knowledge is, wow, isn't the human body phenomenal? It can heal like that. I've been to 2 Dr. Joe Dispenza events, and people are having spontaneous remissions by connecting to this incredible field of love that you mentioned earlier, and having spontaneous remissions, riddled in cancer, or getting out of wheelchairs and walking down the beach. I've seen it. It's extraordinary. And we just have to get past all the years of programming we've been subjected to since birth. And then freedom, I see it as freedom.
And give ourselves, well, I would say two things. Give ourselves permission to heal, because a lot of the time, there's something standing in the way. We get attached to the illness, and it becomes part of us and part of our
identity,
victimhood identity, if you like. Oh, poor me, that kind of thing. So that's important. The only thing I'll say that I haven't said already is that magnetic still point that effectively is at the center of every cell, that's actually delivering information into the cell. The purpose of the cell comes from that magnetic still point, right? It's like I sometimes say to people, there's all these things going on in your body that you have no idea about. And the big myth is that you are in control of your whole body. You're not. You're a mental being making choices about what happens in your body, and then you're like the driver of the ship, but you're not the engineer of the ship, because the engineer of the ship is the creator. Right?
Infinite intelligence.
Like, for example, there's so much divine intelligence going on in your body. Like, you're right now, our lungs are taking the oxygen in, our livers are draining the toxins out of our body, our stomach digesting the food, our fingernails are growing, we're not even noticing that. You could go on and on and on, all of these functions in the body. But all we're doing is deciding how to treat it, how to be in line with it or not, or making choices about what we eat, how we work out, who we hang out with, what we do for a living, all those things. So, I love that.
I love the way you just. Sorry, what was the last thing you said?
Life should be simple.
Yeah, and yes, I love the way you just phrase that. We are the drivers, but we're not. We didn't create this. We didn't. We might be steering it, but all of the functions that are happening all the time, it's mind-bogglingly cool what is going on in the body all the time. I see it as just our job to just give it the right fuel. If you're driving a diesel car, put diesel in it. If you're driving a petrol car or gas car, put gasoline in it, etc. I mean, talking a very simplified version, but it's if we put
and don't drive for 6 hours non-stop, because everything will overheat and you need a rest.
Right.
It's like simple.
Exactly. And we've got to strengthen it. We've got to give it everything it needs. We have to get sunlight. We have to ground. We have to consume nutrition. We have to consume clean water. I mentioned Mark earlier with the cancer. He had to change his entire water supply because he tested the water and he found chemicals in the water in Austin, in Texas. Horrific water supply in Austin, apparently. And he at that point thought that was the actual cause of his cancer, but he changed the water, addresses every angle. So yes, I think we can simplify health and understand that when we give it what it needs, it's going to heal. And we've got to take away what is harming it. And one of the things harming it is the EMFs. So you've created a product which can protect us from that and create this harmonious field around the phones, around our laptops, around Wi-Fi routers. The demonstrations I've seen are they're pretty impressive. So I would recommend anyone who's watching this to just purchase some of these Omnia stickers. Check out the studies, check out the blood. The test that I'm most fascinated by is the live blood analysis. If we can look at the blood, what does a healthy blood cell look like and what does an unhealthy blood cell look like? We don't have to go and do years of study or 4 years or 6 years, whatever it is, to figure out a healthy blood cell compared to an unhealthy blood cell. We just don't need. We can have 1 minute glance at this blood diagram and go, that's not good, that's good.
Not good. Good. Not right. Good. So we intuitively know.
we don't exactly. We can tune into our own intelligence and go, that's a good idea, that's a terrible idea. Thank you, Tim, for joining me again 4 years later.
Indeed, it's a pleasure. Yeah, great to see you again.
Is there anything else you'd like to say before we finish?
No, I think we've covered a hell of a lot there. So it's been a really good chat. And my website, OmniaRadiationBalancer.com, for anyone that's interested.
OmniaRadiationBalancer.com. and if you use the discount code Vitality, VITALITY, I believe, what do we set up? 10% discount, I think.
10%, maybe. I think. Yep.
Yeah, 10%. It's a while ago now.
Yep.
And what is your number one vitality secret?
I'm gonna say releasing. It's something that I haven't necessarily mastered, but I realize whenever I'm getting stressed, or when I'm getting run down, or I'm having trouble in my body, I realize it's because I'm not releasing. And to get into what releasing is, effectively, it's basically allowing your thoughts to leave and just to be, to release all thoughts, emotions, everything else, and just to be. It's almost like to be the stillness that's inside every cell, like that magnetic still point inside every cell, to be that stillness. And to be that stillness, you have to stop your mind from monkeying around. And I've got a bit of a monkey mind. So that's kind of my enemy. My healing enemy is my monkey mind. And for me, it's releasing that and getting rid of that, and basically, releasing.
I really love that. I mean, I want to comment, back to Joe Dispenza retreats and the science of meditation. When we are resting in that place of nothingness, when we are resting in the place of the void, in the blackness, in the darkness, in that place of pure consciousness, that is when remarkable healing happens in the body. And we have science to prove what's happening in the body during meditation, when we're in a coherent place between the heart and the brain. That is pure magic. You mentioned HRV. You've done HRV tests, heart rate variability tests, with your Omnia stickers. And you mentioned the Heart Math Institute. When we're in that place of coherence between the heart and the brain, we are creating healing in the body. So I love that you just talked about release like that, because that's the essence. That's the essence of healing, isn't it? It's just to be in that pure place of no thought, devoid of thought. Because when we have the thought, depending on the type of thoughts, but we can be in a resistant state, blocking the flow of whatever we want to call it.
And this is probably a deeper topic, but often our thoughts are not ours. They're literally coming through our field. They're coming through our field from somewhere else, and they're almost like a virtual reality that we invite in, and then they stay there. And your ego gets like caught up with them, and they never leave. So the whole releasing thing is like, well, thanks, I'm done with you now. Off you go. Because otherwise they can get trapped, and they can get physically trapped, as you well know.
Emotions can become
an electrical part of our bodies, So
thank you, Tim. I've really enjoyed this conversation.
Thanks, Neil.
And it is live on the EMF page, so I'll share it on the main Facebook page as well. So Omnia Radiation Balancer.com.
There we go.
Thank you, Tim.
Take care.
Next time. Thank you for listening to the Vitality Secret podcast. If you liked this, please leave a 5-star rating. And if you loved it, please take a few minutes to leave a review. The more ratings and reviews that are left, the easier it is for this life-changing information to get into the hands of people who need it. Take your vitality to the next level at vitalitysecret.com.